You got this, bitch.
Okay,
You a bad bitch. I know it.
I'm a
I know
bad
you're gonna
bitch.
edit that part out, so it's all good. It's all good. Just a bunch of hood rats trying to record ourselves.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Bare and Brutal podcast, where we bear our feelings and are brutally honest while highlighting stories of resilience, hope, and transforming pain into power. I'm your host, Michelle, and today we have an in-person guest. Like, this is probably the maybe second or third person that I've had actually sitting physically right next to me instead of through a screen. We're going to get into a lot of shit today, y'all. Like, we're going to be talking about childhood trauma. We're going to be talking about grief, how to navigate grief and all the mess that comes with it. We'll be talking about generational trauma and specifically in the Vietnamese diaspora. And if y'all know, you know. So buckle up. It's going to be a crazy episode. We might be cussing, we might be crying. You don't really know. But our guest today, I'm so excited. She drove all the way from fucking Mississippi. All the way from Mississippi to come here and record an episode with me. Please join me as we welcome our guest, Emma Phuong, aka on the streets, Pinky.
Thanks, Michelle, for having me here. If y'all can hear me now, you hear my southern drawl. When I hear myself on the microphone or recording, I always like, man, I sound so cornbread. Like a bale of hay. But I'm Vietnamese AF, okay? Like, I guess it's just where you're raised and where you pick up the English language.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me here today. And I can't wait to dive into this episode and to go through all the things that we have planned.
Yes. So just to give y'all some context, I stumbled upon Emma Phuong Pinky's page on Instagram because it came up like as an ad on my story. Yeah. And it was like something about the memoir that you're writing, which we'll get into. And I was like, oh shit. Clicked on the page. I'm like, I need this girl on my show. I feel like I say this every episode with the guest, but I reached out to you and we had a consultation, and literally our first meeting you're out here throwing F-bombs and you're like, girl, I just woke up with my crusty ass. And I'm like,
I think that the F word's a comma.
Yes.
It helps me pause and breathe.
Yes. And I'm like, this is my person. Like, you're such a hoot. And we were going to record virtually, but you're like, I'm coming to Texas for a concert. And I'm like, what? And so we've planned this, 2 months ago?
Yeah, 2 months ago.
2 months ago.
End of April, yep.
So she came in Texas for a concert, and it's actually her birthday. Happy birthday.
Yeah. It's my mom called me this morning and told me that 35 years ago she found me in Thùng rác, which is trash can. So she said, happy trash can day. That's why I'm so trashy. Yeah.
So what a loving birthday message.
I know. You have them Asian parents. That's where they tell you they found you in the trash can. They didn't really have you.
Yep. My nickname was Roach growing up because they said they found me in the trash can. Yeah.
And that's where childhood trauma begins.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we met this morning to get some lunch, some brunch, had our little dim sum and got some boba, and now we're here back at my house, and she got to see the behind the scenes setup of my ghetto ass setup.
It's super cute, y'all. She made this space into what it is, and it's super cute. My ass would be, stashing up in the garage, to be roaches nearby. You'd be fighting for your life during the podcast.
Well, thank you for coming. You have a 6-hour drive after this.
Yeah, I do have a 6-hour drive back, but it was worth it to stop and see you.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that we get to do this, and please start off by telling the audience. I mean, why do you have this cornbread accent? First of all, tell me your story, tell me your background.
Yeah.
How did you become living in Asian as fuck in Mississippi?
Well, before I can talk about me growing up in Mississippi, I have to go way back how my parents came to America, just like a lot of our parents. My parents were sponsored by a church in Northampton, Massachusetts, and arrived in 1980 from the Thailand refugee camp they stayed at for 2 years. Mm-hmm. During that time, my mom had my oldest brother already in Vietnam, and then my middle brother, who I call Froggy, which we'll get into in a little bit, in the Thailand refugee camp. And once they were sponsored, my dad became a janitor at Smith College in Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. And then my mom worked at a plastic factory. They lived up there for about 7 or 8 years, and then they had my third brother. And then I think dad had always wanted to be his own boss. So he was like, honey, I heard that they have a shrimp boat industry. Okay. Not shrimping industry in the South. So they're like, let's save up money and buy a trawler, which is a shrimp boat.
Mm-hmm.
So they went to Tampa, Florida, bought a trawler. And then the Tampa laws were changing on the shrimping industry down there. I think they were geared towards more tourism than seafood growth. So dad heard that in Pascagoula, Mississippi, that there was a growing shrimping industry with a large Vietnamese community. So he drove his shrimp boat for 3 days, 72 hours from Tampa all the way to Pascagoula, Mississippi. And then when they were staying in Pascagoula, they waited for the Section 8 housing voucher to be approved because they were not residents yet. So we lived in the projects in Biloxi, and there was a large Vietnamese community. And the projects that we moved into was a large, vast majority of Vietnamese. But before the Vietnamese came in 1975, it was called Homes for the African Americans. So not only do I have a Southern draw, but sometimes I have a little urban slang and everything that comes out of me because I learned English early on from the Black community that grew up with us pretty much. And I was just telling Michelle earlier that the kids that we grew up with, a lot of the Black kids even knew like certain Vietnamese words. They're walking around the hood saying "do ma" and stuff like that. Had our cafeteria lady say "mo hai ba." So it was very interesting growing up. Although I was in Mississippi, I was also in my own Vietnamese community. And we lived there until I turned 16. Hurricane Katrina happened. And then dad had sold his shrimp boat already. And then my mom worked at the casino as a dealer. And then she lost her job because 90% of our businesses on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi was wiped out. So we moved 3 hours north to Jackson, Mississippi, and opened up a nail salon. And then from there, my family learned how to do nails, and we got into the nails business. And I
stereotypical,
graduated high school and went to nursing school up there in Jackson, and then went to CRNA school and came back to Jackson to be closer to my parents and my brother. And then became a nurse anesthetist. I'm a CRNA by trade.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's loaded. We're gonna get back into all that history, but what a journey. I mean,
I never left Mississippi. I mean, this is
so
Southern roots all the way.
What was that like growing up, in Mississippi with so much culture, but like how was it like growing up with your parents? And
so it wasn't bad on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi because of the large Vietnamese community we had. Like we had a Buddhist temple, a Vietnamese Catholic church, and then we even had a Vietnamese Baptist church where my family went. But when we moved 3 hours north, it's whenever the culture shifted. If you know anything about Jackson, Mississippi, it's where the civil rights movement happened. So there's a lot of segregation there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so a lot of there's private schools and there's public schools in Jackson, and the Jackson public school system is predominantly Black, and then the private schools are predominantly white. So I was not used to that. I was used to growing up on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi where the Vietnamese community went to school with whites and Blacks, and we were very diverse, and we were all used to seeing each other. So when I came up to a place where it was, blatantly segregated, but by class, socioeconomics, it was a big culture shift for me. I had a difficult time adjusting when I first moved up there. So I felt a lot of imposter syndrome, hanging around with these other kids who were not Vietnamese and, predominantly white, So when I was around them and they didn't understand what my family went through, with being Vietnamese refugees and everything, it was an adjustment for me to have to constantly explain myself why I didn't do the things that they did. So that was a big shift for me. And I think that was more of the Mississippi culture that people stereotype about was when I moved to Jackson versus when I grew up on the coast. Yeah.
So did you experience, people treating you differently because you were Asian? Like, was there a community in Jackson of Asian people too?
There is a Vietnamese community in Jackson, and I didn't personally experience like one-on-one, but when we first moved to the suburbs of Jackson, which is Madison, Mississippi, we were probably one of the only Vietnamese family, and our house kept on getting egged. And the tomato cans in our yard. And one day I opened the door and they're saying, "Ching Chang Chong," and go back to your country. So I was barefoot and I chased this 10-year-old boy down the street barefoot. like,
that boy met the right one that day.
Like, you better run fast, boy. I'm from the hood. We don't need shoes to run in these streets. My mom's like, thôi đừng có lo con, nó còn nhỏ mà. Like he gonna be con nhỏ when I smash him on the ground.
Dang. Yeah. I bet they didn't come back to the house after that.
Well, I found out who his sister was, and I found out that his mom was a cop. And so I called the police department.
Wow.
And then the mom came over and made him apologize to us, because she's like, this is not how I raised him.
Yeah.
Like, we do not talk like this in our house. I don't know where he got her from, but he is going to apologize to you and your mom. Yeah.
Dang.
So that was the only experience for me. But my husband said when he first moved up there with me and Jackson, he was going to Walmart with my brother, the one that is in Florida. And these boys walked by my brothers and said, my grandpa stacked them back in Nam. So my brother circled around the exit and went out the front door. And then my husband went to where, like, the entry, and then, like, trapped him in and said, say that shit one more time.
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, you don't realize we're hood rat Vietnamese. Yeah. Like, say that one more time. And then the security guy was a black guy. And he was like, I saw it. They were being racist. Go ahead. So, like, growing up in, like, the black community, we always felt closer and bonded with the black community. And it's not because I like them more than another race. It's just what we knew. They accepted us early on. I think because we were both minorities, we both endured hardship. I mean, like, my babysitter that was disabled that lived across from us in Biloxi, Section 8 housing, she helped walk me to the bus stop. We were a community of underserved population and, you know, disadvantaged background.
Yeah.
So, you know, so I think it's just funny how no matter where I go, even when I went travel nursing and I went up to the hospital, I was like, where's all the colored people at? I instantly look for, you know, like black people, Asian people. Yeah. And then the first black girl I saw, I was just like, oh my gosh. I was like, where is everyone?
Where's our people?
Girl, I gave her a hug. I was like, what's your Facebook, girl? Well, we need to connect. So, like, still to this day, I gravitate towards people who I feel like I share, you know, like a similar experience with.
Yeah, naturally. Can you tell me about how you got into CRNA? And because I know a bit about your story. You told me, I think a lot of this ties into your healing journey too. Walk me through this time in your life where you were working at, you know, CRNA and what that was like. You were experiencing burnout.
So I was a trauma ICU RN before I went back to school for nurse anesthesia, which is certified registered nurse anesthetist. And we pretty much work in the operating room where we do anesthesia for people who have surgery. Some places we work with anesthesiologists, some places we don't. We're completely independent. It just depends on where you are. So I went back to CRNA school. That's where I had my first daughter. And I was trying to figure out where to work. And I said, hey, let's move back to Jackson, Mississippi, because my middle brother, Froggy, was living there. And I was like, I want to spend more time with him because I have a kid now. And I want my kid to know who their uncle is. And my parents were up there. So I wanted them to know who their grandparents are. Because I grew up in America with no grandparents. Not a lot of family. So I was like, I want my kids to know their family.
Right.
So I moved back to Jackson, and I was working at an academic medical center there. And I thought that this was the place I needed to be. I worked there in 2019, and then 2020, everything shut down. And then I got pregnant June of 2020. And then we were all kind of worried and scared. My brother, he did nails, so all that was shut down. So he was door dashing, waitering. And then in November, Thanksgiving week, he got COVID. So we had to cancel our Thanksgiving get together. And we were like, it's okay. You know, like right now you just got to quarantine 14 days. Yeah. He called his doctor. They're like, just take Tylenol, take cough medicine, stay home. Like that was a time where no one knew what to do. Yeah. Everyone was like, stay home because the hospitals are overwhelmed. So he stayed home, and then 14 days passed. His fever broke. He stopped coughing. And then day 17, he couldn't breathe. And I was pregnant, and I wanted to go over to his apartment. And my mom was like, no, you're pregnant. Do not go over there. Yeah. So that came in with a lot of guilt. Once the next thing happened, we called 911 because he woke up from his nap, and he couldn't breathe. And he couldn't move the right side of his body, I think. And then the ambulance came, picked him up, and took him to the hospital. But because the hospital was so short-staffed, because people were out from COVID, that he waited in the ER for 5 hours. So it was like one thing after another. Like it was the worst time to have COVID, worst time to go to the hospital. Like all these things came into play. By the time they took him to CT, he ended up going to cardiac arrest. His heart stopped pretty much, probably from respiratory issue, not enough oxygen. And then they coded him. And then that was probably around between maybe 10 p.m. to midnight. But by 5 o'clock, they stabilized him enough to bring him to the COVID ICU. And they called my mom. And they told my mom, they're like, hey, he decompensated. We, did chest compression. My mom doesn't understand any of that. She's not medical. She has bare minimum English. So she calls my dad and tells him to wake me up and talk to the doctor. But really, it was the ICU nurse that called. So I talked to them. He was like, you really need to get your family here to say goodbye. And I was like, this can't be happening.
Yeah.
I just talked to him at 10 p.m. He told me that he was going in for his x-ray.
Yeah.
Like, this can't be real. I was scheduled to work at 10 a.m. the next day. So I was going to bed. So I texted him around 9:30 just to make sure he was okay. And he was in the hospital getting in. I said, I'll talk to you in the morning whenever they figure out what's wrong.
Yeah.
And I never talked to him ever again. So I was supposed to work a 10 a.m. shift and get off at 11 p.m. Super pregnant. I was supposed to take that shift because somebody else had gotten COVID at work. And then we ended up all bringing my family up there. And then his heart was dropping again because he was pretty much on medicine to keep his heart rate and everything up. And then we ended up withdrawing on him, withdrawing care, and then he passed. So right when I left the hospital, I went straight to the funeral home, planned his funeral. Parents got, all his stuff ready. Never had time to grieve.
Yeah.
And then we had his funeral, and it was one like those graveside funerals. And there was only like 10 people allowed at graveside outside service. It was like super sad. I did like a Facebook Live for the funeral service.
Yeah.
And then I buried him on a Wednesday. And by Friday, my boss asked me, hey, first, are you okay? Second, when do you think you're coming back from work? Because a lot of people have COVID right now and we're super short. And I said, what the fuck? I was like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
I was like, my brother just died. And I was like, and you literally don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so right there, I started getting burnout already. Like that little seed that started everything. And then I was like, I think I can come back next week. I just don't know which day yet. I'll let you know. But I started feeling bad. I started getting sick. My body was hurting. I was spiking a fever. And I went to go get a COVID test. And then I had COVID. So I got to stay home for 10 days.
Yeah.
Because they count the days before from your exposure. So I probably got it from the funeral. And then, so I stayed home for 9 days. And by the 9th day, my boss texted me again. So I still had one more day to stay home. He said, hey, just checking on you. Do you think you can come back to work a day early? And I said, yeah, I guess. He said, okay. And then he sent it over to whoever was ahead of like the COVID approval for you to come back to work. And then I came back on the 9th day instead of the 10th day. Super pregnant. And then that was
still grieving the loss of your brother.
the loss of my brother. And then that was December. And then I had my baby in March.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was a lot.
Yeah.
Because I was pregnant and I'm like feeling this life inside of me, but I'm also grieving this death that I didn't understand. Like if we never had COVID and then we never had a pandemic happen, like my brother would still be alive.
Yeah.
So I came back and I was still doing this awful shift. It's called 3 13-hour shifts. But we couldn't always get someone to come relieve us at 13-hour. So I would stay there till like 9 p.m. And then we parked our car across the street in the ghetto parking lot. So like, I'm like 9 p.m. pregnant, walking across the street. Yeah. So I'm just like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So I bared, I had my kid, I pushed myself through. I'm like, this is a good job. It's stable. It's a paycheck. I'm going to keep going. A year and 9 months later, my oldest brother died. We call him Jake or Nhai. So he died. And I was like, all right, I got to get off of 313s or else I'm going to lose my shit.
Yeah.
So they put me on 410s. But 410s, we didn't always get off at 4:30.
Right.
Sometimes once or twice a week, I would get off at 6 p.m. So now I'm stuck in the same situation. It's just an extra day. Extra day at work. I'm like, this is the most ghetto ass shit ever. And I'm like questioning, I'm like, did I really go into the right profession? I started to hate my job.
Yeah.
I would wake up, cry on the way to school. Cry on the way to work. And then leave work, cry going home from work. And then go home. I'm like burnt out. Didn't want to be around my family. And I was just like yelling at everybody. I'm like, this isn't me. I'm a fun person.
Yeah.
Like, this job is sucking the life out of me.
Yeah.
So I was like sitting on the couch with my husband. I think we were karaoke with our home karaoke set because that's how Asian we are. Hold on, babe. Pause that real quick, okay? That got a little pause it real quick. And I was just like, what do you think about me going travel? He was like, what do you mean? I was like, we have an Airbnb that we bought after my first brother died. And I was like, let's see if I can find a travel assignment where our Airbnb is. And I stay in the Airbnb.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, just look it up. He's down for whatever, you know. He's my DTW husband. DFW. Yeah, down for whatever husband. That could have changed real quick. And so I got a travel assignment in Missouri. I was actually in a CRNA mom's Facebook group, and I met another mom in there. And then she said she worked at a hospital in Missouri, and I was like, what y'all got going on there? And I was like, is it on fire? I mean, why do y'all need people?
Why? Yeah.
She's like, no, we're just short because people left after COVID and people were tired. And I was like, all right. I was like, well, you know, send my name through. I was like, I'm on my way. And when I was up there, I got my grief coach certification. I did it online. I did it by myself. And then I found inner child healing. I've been in and out of therapy since I graduated from CRNA school. And I found this lady, it's called the Inner Child Council. Her name is Amy Griss, and she's from United Kingdom, from England. And she has this amazing British accent. Like, I always want to pick up a biscuit and tea whenever I have a session with her. It's probably so racist you can't say that. But and she taught me inner child because I knew I wanted to be an inner child guide, or they call it practitioner over there. I just didn't know if we could do that over here, say practitioner. And she taught me about inner child healing and how all the things that happen to us as a child comes into play with how we react to the world around us as an adult. Even though we're in this grown ass adult body, our inner child is still on the inside saying, hey, I still need attention. So, you know, as she was going through that workshop with me, I found healing for the first time in grief. And I was struggling for almost 4 years with my grief, with my trauma that I went through growing up in Biloxi and from all the things I saw growing up in Mississippi. And this was the first time I found peace. And I feel like my inner child and my adult self is aligned with one another, where my inner child isn't crying out for me anymore for attention.
So what year did you discover inner healing and inner child healing?
So it was just last year. So I started in 2023. I left to go travel as a CRNA in Missouri in August 2023, found inner child healing workshop October 2023. And then at this point right now, I'm almost certified. I just have to turn in a couple of hours to be certified, and I should be certified for inner child healing. Yeah.
So from 2020 to 2023, when did you grieve for the loss of your brothers?
All the time. I went back and I took care of patients right after my brother. I was pregnant, or after my brother died, and I worked weekends, and I took care of a baby who had COVID complications. No longer had COVID, but she threw blood clots all throughout her body, and she had repercussions and consequences when you have blood clots in your fingers and toes and legs. She had to have a couple of extremities amputated, and that was so triggering for me to see that happened. I was like, if my brother would have lived, would this have happened to him?
Yeah.
Like, I was reliving the night that I withdrew my brother all over again, every single time, every time I got a patient. But no one else around me experienced COVID loss.
Yeah.
So I felt so alone. So while I was doing that, I ended up opening a grief group, is what I call it, for healthcare workers in Jackson, Mississippi. And I had a pretty decent turnout, and a lot of people reached out about grief group, and I felt less alone, that there was other people around me that was grieving and trying their best every day to function in healthcare.
Yeah.
But once I went to Missouri to go travel, that kind of fizzled out. So my plan right now is to start grief group back again.
Another community.
Yeah.
Girl, I can't even imagine. I mean, I have two brothers and a sister, and like the thought of losing them it was back to back for you. Like you had so many things, layers of things going on. I mean, your job was shit.
The hours was not for me.
Yes, lost your brother unexpectedly, pregnant.
Yeah.
And then what was it like when you unexpectedly lost your second brother? I mean,
so my oldest brother the second one that I lost, we were very close whenever I was going to college. He actually went back to college with me when it was my turn. We're 11 years apart, but he had messed up when he was 18, 19. He was like party mode, first time away from my parents, you know. And then so when he saw that I turned 18, I applied to college. He said, I want to go with you. He said, we're going to major in pharmacy. And it was like, and we're going to, you know, go to pharmacy school together.
Yeah.
So we went to Ole Miss together. We took all the same classes. He got on my damn nerves. He was like, you can't go to the party. You got to go to the library with me. And it was like having a dad with me on campus.
Yeah.
And I was like, what about this whole life I keep hearing about? You know? Like, so, but in that special moment, that year that we spent together at the university, like we bonded for the first time. And we had a tumultuous siblingship pretty much. Like he was the one who like beat me and was like being high. He was like the extra dad, like the extra disciplinary. So for the first time at Ole Miss, he wasn't that. He was the fun brother, the brother I could ask questions without being, you know, having repercussions.
Yeah.
But after he graduated with his accounting and finance degree, he ended up suffering from depression, got into drinking, gambling, and a little bit of drugs. And then we kind of stopped talking. We got into a big argument probably a year before he passed. And then it was my biggest regret was like, why didn't we just make up?
Yeah.
You know, why didn't we forgive each other? But I think we always forgave each other. I think we were just thinking we had more time.
Yeah.
So when I lost him, it was like watching your favorite TV show and it only had one season. That's a pilot. And then you never knew what happened the second season.
Damn
Because
it.
it got canceled.
Damn.
So it was hard. It was very hard. Even though we were estranged and we had a strained relationship, like I love him. But it was very hard because it was that I'll never know what would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you react though? I mean, because you still had that estranged relationship, right? Like I can imagine you still had some anger.
Yeah, lots of anger. So when my other brother died from COVID, I had the baby and I just drank. And I'm not proud of what I said about drinking, but like that's the only way I knew how to cope, right?
Yeah.
Like is to drink and to do what you saw around you. So I drank a lot after my brother died from COVID. And then when my oldest brother died, I drank for the first week during his funeral. And after that, I was like, let's do it differently this time.
Yeah.
Because I had such a struggle with my last brother's death. I was like, let's not drink.
Yeah.
So I'm not completely cold turkey, you know, but I don't go home from work and look for a bottle of wine in the refrigerator. And on the weekends, I really don't do alcohol anymore. I'm just like hanging out about my little Sprite that bubbles. You know? And it's been great.
Yeah.
Because I feel like what I was doing was numbing myself. But as humans, we're not meant to numb ourselves. We're meant to feel and heal. It sounds so corny. Yeah. Feel, heal, and process. We're not meant to suppress and then to bottle it in because all it does is festers and poison us, right? So when my oldest brother died, I was like, let's do it differently. And I really wanted to understand my brother and what he was going through with his depression. And through me quitting alcohol and going back in time, I took my mom to Massachusetts in August of 2023 after I left the academic hospital and I went to go travel. I took my mom to Massachusetts where they start their life. And then I went to the elementary school, their first apartment. I even saw the first P.O. box that my mom and dad had. And I understood my oldest brother and what he went through. It's crazy because after death, I understand him even more deeply than I ever did when he was alive.
Yeah.
And I remember at Ole Miss, this memory came up out of nowhere. Like I completely forgot about it. And he said, my kindergarten teacher choked me. Yeah, this is in Massachusetts. And I said, what? He said, I grabbed extra milk. And then she came up behind me and choked me. And I was like, did you tell mom and dad? He was like, what was the point? You know, like mom and dad wanted to be like low key.
Yeah.
You know, model minority and didn't want to complain. And even if I did, they're going to be like, it's my, you know, my power.
Yeah.
And like, so these are the things. And I didn't realize, but my brothers grew up during this time where people were pissed about the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And they were still holding grudges and angry that the Vietnamese refugees came to America. So his time frame, growing up in the 80s in America during a time where Vietnamese were coming in, taking these jobs in the factories that felt like a threat to these other people, you know, who've been there for decades working.
kindergarten though, like
Yeah.
that's such a heavy responsibility for a 5-year-old.
Yeah, and then my parents, their parenting style was like beating us, like if you don't listen, if you don't make a good grade, like you're getting slapped till like next week.
Yeah.
So so all this stuff that culminated, and then my brother ended up with adult depression, and he didn't know how to treat it because mental health is not talked about in our community.
Right.
So he just medicated himself with alcohol, with, gambling, whatever that, gave him that dopamine rush, that release that he didn't get from my parents. So he self-medicated himself. So I love him more, and I forgive him more. And I actually dug deeper into his mind, body, and soul now that he's gone. And I forgive him.
Yeah.
When he's alive, I was so angry. I'm like, why are you on drugs? Why are you drinking? Why aren't you watching my nephew?
Yeah.
And then he couldn't explain it. But now I understand him so much more because all the things that he went through that he couldn't feel and heal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that like walking through his childhood with your mom?
It was bittersweet. It's weird because there's a quote, I forgot who it was written by, but it talks about a river, right? No man comes back to the same river twice, because you come back and it's another water that's flowing through, and then you're not the same either.
Yeah.
So, if you went back there when you were 5 years old and you come back whenever you're 30, you're not the same. Neither is that river.
Yeah.
So, it was crazy going back to all those old places with where my brothers grew up, because I've been there. We moved up there shortly for 6 months when I was 5 years old. And I came back and I'm like, my brothers were alive. They walked this grass, this ground.
Yeah.
And I'm like, 29 years later, I'm back. And I was like, but my brothers are gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm curious about your mom, though, because, growing up, mental health's not talked about.
Oh, yeah.
And now you're in the process of writing a memoir about these experiences that they had and these struggles and walking the path that your brother did. How has that been, opening up those conversations with your parents?
I think my mom is enjoying it a lot more. Like, at first I was annoying her because I bought the Parents Are Human deck of cards.
Yeah.
And I'm like waving it in her face like, Mom, hồi mẹ sanh đẻ con mẹ thấy làm sao? And she's like, thôi đi ra. So I'm actually made a recording on my Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I recorded her, like, how did you feel when I was born? And she's like, tamara, like, I'm tired. So I think she likes it. And then, like, I'm starting to find out things about my dad that he's very quiet. And that's why I married a husband that's very similar to my dad. He's very quiet. And that's why I do anesthesia, because I want to be the only one talking.
Yeah.
So I love my patients, but I love when they listen too, or when they're forced to listen. Yeah. So my dad, I asked him, I was like, there's one of the cards that says, what was your favorite thing to do as a child? And then I asked my dad, like, what was his favorite thing to do when you were a kid? And my dad said, tie you. And I was like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
What that is, Daddy? He said, flying a kite. And I was like, oh. I was like, I ain't never heard that Vietnamese word because you never done it with me.
Go take me to fly a kite right now, Daddy.
Yeah, you ain't never take me to fly no damn kite. How's your favorite? Like.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So I had taken my son to the park to fly a kite like a week before I did that, that card with my dad. And I posted it on Facebook, and my dad liked it. And I'm like, I wonder, was it healing for him to see that his grandchild, his Jiao Wai, was able to fly a kite as he had when he was a child. You see, like, it's connecting. Like, if it wasn't for you, Dad, even though you gave us so much trauma, you handed your trauma to us.
Yeah. I
was like, you didn't mean to.
Right.
This is all you knew. Because it's one of those things that I beat you because I love you. But really, I beat you because this is the only thing I know how to do. Because I love you. Yeah. So he gave us his trauma, but at one point, someone has to put the trauma down. So that's whenever I went to this inner child healing. I was like, oh my gosh, it could stop at me. Yeah. I can put it down now. Yeah. I was like, like, this is healing generations of trauma. What happened to my dad, and then my grandfather, and then my great-grandparents, they were Chinese refugees in Vietnam. So they came down, they left China, and they settled in Vietnam. So, whatever happened to them, that's a lot of trauma. Yeah. So when you heal your inner child, you're not only healing you, but multiple generations before you, being a chain breaker. Yeah. Yeah.
But, that's a really tough mission to carry out, though.
It's hard. It's definitely not easy. But mama didn't raise no punk bitch, so
we doing it.
We doing it, girl.
Have you had those
Yeah.
conversations and addressed those things with your parents though, like about the abuse?
Yeah.
And
I do. I think my dad actually feels a lot of guilt for my brothers, and because they grew up to be men who could not deal with difficult emotions. Like my oldest brother was very abusive, and he lashed out and was very physical when things were uncomfortable or when he got angry. And I think as his oldest, as being the oldest, like you got the most like pressure on you.
Yeah.
Like you need to succeed, you need to finish school because all your younger siblings are looking at you. You need to translate. He's the first bridge to all of us.
Yeah.
You know, like he's the first
You're
bridge.
the end high. Like
you're the end high. You know, like so he was a bridge for my parents to cross over into America. Pretty much, he translated everything, did everything when he was young. So a lot of pressure was on him. Until he couldn't bear it anymore. And then it got passed on to each of us. And then, so my mom, like one of the cards I asked her, the one like, how did you feel when you had me? Or what was your most favorite memory about us? Or something like that. And the parents are human cards. And then my dad said, kids and your mom or whatever. And then my mom said, the day I have you. I was like, what? I was like, if I'm your favorite memory, then why you always beat me as a kid? Then she'd like tell you, wouldn't you? But the more you laugh, then the more you hit. Okay. Yeah. So I can't talk to her ass about trauma. She thinks she's like, that wouldn't know my thành bác sĩ. Because I have my doctor of nursing and nurse anesthesia.
Yeah.
So she said, if I would have hit you more, you become medical doctor, not nurse doctor. I'm like, man, mama, I can't even talk to you about my trauma right now. You making fun of me.
She's like, damn, I should have hit you more, girl. Then you'd be more successful.
I wouldn't tell my thành bác sĩ. Ngưng bởi mà làm bác sĩ ta.
But it's good though that you're having these conversations with them because I mean I've talked about my own journey with my mom too. Like you have to think they've been like this for 50 plus years of their lives. Like ain't no changing now. Like, I mean, we give them opportunities too, right?
They don't have the resources that we do now. We have so much information out there to tell us, hey, this isn't normal, or this doesn't have to be that way, or you don't have to always live in fight or flight, or be in survival mode. Like this can change, and you can change your habits and what was taught to you. Our parents didn't have that choice. Our parents came to America, was instantly in fight or flight and survival mode, and hey, let's hurry up and become Americans and become adaptable so we can succeed.
And I think about that a lot. Like I'm like, man, my mom is so resilient. Like she's so strong, and I'm over here.
Yeah, you didn't have her in a podcast.
I gotta take like happy pills, every morning so that I can just function correctly.
Me too, sis.
But it like I remember growing up with this sense of guilt though. Whenever I did feel a certain way, like almost invalidating my own experience. Like, oh, what right do I have to feel this way when mom literally came over here on a broken ass boat, got attacked by pirates, and so there's a balance though, because like they came over and made those sacrifices, and so that we could be afforded these opportunities to choose like how we want to live our lives. And like I think about my mom's journey a lot, and a lot of people who came over from Vietnam, like they didn't have time to focus on their depression or anxiety, because I know my mom struggles with depression and anxiety
for sure,
and all this trauma that she faced growing up, but they were just in survival mode. Like, how am I gonna put food on the table? Like, how am I gonna figure out how to live in this new country where no one likes us, everyone, So for us to be able to say now, okay, it stops at me, like I'm gonna do this work so it doesn't continue, like that's honoring what our parents did.
They removed themselves from a place that was so traumatic from all the war and all the things that they had to do to get here, and then they didn't have the resources, no translation. Like none of us were even counselors yet. Now we are. Now we're growing up and we're going into healthcare. We're becoming doctors, nurses, and therapists, and now we have all of this plethora of information out there. So now it's our turn to heal for the future generations. We're coming into second, third generations in America right now. So we can't keep on. The way that our parents parented us was for a country that no longer exist for us. Like Vietnam is not how it used to be from 1975.
Right.
So they parented us in a way that their parents, our grandparents, survived in the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And then now they try to do that same thing to us over here, but it didn't work because we're not running from bombs and, people shooting at us and, schools being blown up and all that. So they try to parent us the same way. And then now we feel like there's an urgency, and we have this urgency and this fight or flight everywhere with us because our parents gave that to us.
Yeah.
So finally, I feel like us spiritually, we didn't feel safe. Even though we were just sitting here chilling, like, why am I having a panic attack sitting on this couch? I was like, I ain't never been a bit calm in my life. I haven't been in Vietnam. Why am I panicking? Like, because it was handed down to us.
Yeah.
But, that's what I'm saying earlier. Like, when you decide, hey, let's set this down now. Let's not live in survival mode anymore. So that was a big pivotal moment in my healing journey because I felt like I could not get over my grief. And you'll never get over your grief. It'll be with you for the rest of your life. For as long as you live and breathe, you will always grieve the person that you love whenever they pass. Especially whenever it's someone that raised you, like my brothers raised me. But I was having a hard time was because I couldn't get out of fight or flight. I was always having panic attacks, and I was masking it with alcohol, with booking extra shifts at work. Grief will just always be there waiting for you, no matter how busy you keep yourself. Yeah. Or how many times you tell yourself that you're okay. It's just sitting there at the door waiting for you right when you get done. But yeah.
And I imagine this decision you made to write your memoir is part of that healing process for you. Can you walk me through like the decision and why you decided to do this?
So I always knew I wanted to write a book. I mean, it started whenever I was just learning the alphabet in kindergarten, and we were actually in Massachusetts when I was 5. I'm like,
let's go way back.
Yeah, go way back. And I was hiding in the closet with a little notepad, and I'm like sitting here. I couldn't even write words yet. I just wrote letters. I'm like, how you spell that? He walked over there. H-W walk. And then I did the first letter of every word. Yeah. And then I was always telling everybody my family story. Like my parents came over on a boat, and then it was in a refugee camp. Every single person that gave me the opportunity to share my family story, I shared it. And they're like, you should write a book. I was like, I should, huh? I was like, I cuss a lot. So how do I implement that in there with the cuss words? They're like, if it's a part of you, then you should share that and just give people a warning in the beginning. Trigger warning. She says F a lot. And then when I graduated from senior high school, I started writing, but there was like no ends, no outline. It was just writing just to write, to practice. Yeah. And then when my brother died from COVID, I was like, okay, my brother died from COVID at 40. And I was like, life is short. And I'm like, I'm 30 something years old. I'm 31. I was like, what have I always wanted to do that if I got COVID and I died tomorrow, that I won't regret doing? It's like, I need to finish this damn book. I was like, so I started writing, and I talked about, the story opens up in the beginning about my brother's death. And then it's the day that he dies is the anniversary that my parents arrived to America 40 years ago. So my parents arrived December 4th, 1980. And then my brother died December 4th, 2020. Wow. And then my brother was 40 years old. So like the number 40 or 4 is always, I always see it everywhere I go. Yeah. So I started writing the book, and then I had an author coach helping me at one point, but she was kind of pushing me to finish. But I always felt deep within that I was not ready to finish it. So I was slowing down, taking a break. And then by the time I did that, a year and 9 months later, my oldest brother died. And then I was like trying to write again. And then when I tried to write, I just didn't know how to finish it because the first part of the book was about my middle brother dying. How do I add in that I had another brother died while writing the story? And then I had to go back and write about that brother, my oldest brother that died, the one that I was estranged from. But so much traumatic memories came up about my oldest brother. Girl, I went into like fight or flight and panic attacks. Well, I'm writing that. I'm like, this is not healthy. Like, I'm writing a scene about where I saw my dad dragging my oldest brother out of bed by the scalp of his hair, like off of the mattress, and like was hitting him in the face. And then like my body sends myself into sympathetic nervous response. Like there's a bear in the room. I have to run from the bear. Yeah. So I stopped writing, and that was around the spring of 2023. And then that's around the same time I decided to go traveling, go back to Massachusetts, found inner child healing. So everything I feel like is kind of lined up. Yeah. And then once I healed my inner child, I was like, now I'm ready to finish my book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm ready to write about my brother's story without feeling like I went back to the past and I'm reliving the trauma.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's titled Not Another Immigrant Story?
So I started it.
Yeah.
I started it, Not Another Immigrant Story, when my brother died from COVID. But after my oldest brother died, almost 2 years later, I changed it. I was like, I want to call it This Bitch Memoir because my middle name is But, B-I-C-H. But you know, the American people cannot say but, and they like saying cuss words. So
I'm just writing this bitch memoir.
This bitch memoir. They're like, what? You know, like they're. I say, ain't no T in it, so it's not cussing. And I always tell people, and I was like, you know, my birth name was Phug, you know, but Phug, and people can't say it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went by, you know, Phug but though, for like most of my life in Biloxi. And then my mom went to go check me out one day from school, and she wrote my full name onto the checkout book.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady on the intercom looked at it, and she kind of squinted her eyes, and she was like, okay. She called the intercom. She's like, "Bong bitch, toe to the office, checking out." I'm like in algebra 2, learned the quadratic formula. I didn't know what the hell was going on with this damn formula. Oh, this bitch is getting out of here. Y'all enjoy your algebra 2. Mom's taking me to go get my teeth cleaned. I'm about to stop by and get some Sonics with an S.
Bong bitch, toe to the front office.
So
please.
this bitch memoir, what became about, was born.
So where are you in the writing process? Are you finishing it?
So I am finishing it. So I have 2/3 of it written, and where I stopped was when I started introducing my oldest brother's story, because I'd never planned on adding his story as part of one of the main characters in there either. So it's going to start pretty much about my brother's death, both of them, and then it's going to go backwards about my family in America, and then it's going to go into our traumatic childhood and how we were raised.
Yeah.
And then it'll go back into me going to healthcare, and then this journey how I found healing at the end, and the forgiveness that I found in my parents.
Yeah.
And that forgiveness I found with my oldest brother. So I mean, yeah. So it circles back around.
Yeah. Can you talk about that forgiveness? Like how has that journey been?
I was never able to forgive anybody until I forgave myself for the things that I couldn't control. I think we're so hard on ourselves naturally for the things that happen to us. We blame us. Like we feel unwanted, we feel unloved. And until we love ourselves, which is loving your inner child, until we establish that relationship with ourselves in a healthy manner, then that's the only time we were able to forgive other people.
So what does that look like? Can you give me an example of like, I mean, you say forgive your inner child. I'm like,
so when I was very angry about my childhood, I was very angry about how we were raised, how my dad snapped on us and beat us. I was very angry about how my mom treated me, versus my brother. It was unfair that she let my brother do whatever, but she was very strict on me, or she was always hitting me, like never sat down and talked to me. She just went straight to just smacking the shit out of me. So I never forgave her, and I resented her for a long time. I just felt very unseen by her, and I was looking for like words of affirmation from a culture that doesn't do it.
That shit don't exist.
Quality time. And all this other stuff.
Here's some fruit that I cut up for you. That's my love.
Yeah. My dad used to beat me and then gave me $5 for ice cream truck that drove by afterwards. So healing your inner child, I'll tell you what it is. You go into this meditative state and you go back and you meet that little girl. So if I were to do a session with you, Michelle, I would tap back in this meditation with you. You would find that little Michelle, the one who needed certain things like attention, affection, whatever you need. And then you say, hey, little Michelle, I'm your mom now. I'm your guardian. I'm about to give you all the things that you always needed, but you were afraid to ask for it, or you didn't know that you needed it.
Yeah.
So you go back and you give that little Michelle all these things that you've always wanted, but the adult Michelle doesn't even realize that little Michelle is like, hey, I need this, I need that. And then over time, your brain will start actually taking you out of fight or flight memories, bring you into a safe, secure environment.
Yeah.
And then that little inner child that always was hurting gets reparented. Like these new memories are formed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think self-care was initially made really for this inner healing, but people don't realize that that's a little us in there that needed that hashtag self-care.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once I healed myself and I found peace with myself, and that little that little pinky toe, that little girl in there that needed parents who didn't hit her, parents who actually had the patience to show her how to do math or show her how to do certain things, or who gave her attention versus my brother's more attention. Once I felt comfortable and safe again, I was like, Mom, you did your best. Dad, did your best.
Yeah.
This is what was taught to you. I was like, I can't go back and change what you did to me, but I can go back and change and give the little Pinky or the little Michelle all the things that you couldn't give to me because you were surviving in survival mode. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds scary. That sounds scary to go back and look at, you know.
Yeah, it's not therapy, because therapy will actually like have you pull out like a traumatic memory, and then like, you know, they'll try to do EMDR. Like I did EMDR where it's like an eye movement thing where they move your memories to like a different part of your brain. What I do is not that. It's meditation. It's like the here and now and the future. I don't go back to your past. Yeah, besides the little girl, but then like we take that little girl and we bring her to the future. Like we need to bring her to the present so she can feel safe again.
So when you're in instances where you get triggered now, what's the process like for you? What goes on in your mind?
So I haven't been triggered in a while, but when and if I do, I definitely go to my safe place, which is my bed. I tell my husband, I'm like, hey, I need to step away. I'm overstimulated. Like communication is a big part of our marriage now. I used to not be able to communicate because that's not what my parents did. That's not what my brothers did. We just get up and start whipping your ass. You're overstimulating me. So I go to my room, and then I use the techniques and tools that I've been taught and what I teach my clients. Hey, let's take you back to that little you. And find out, why are you being triggered at this moment? Like, what happened? You know, and then like, okay, well, let's go back and have it, like, say my mom beat me, right? Whenever she could teach me math. So I'll go back into this meditative state where I'm teaching my little me a math problem, and there's not a flying flip-flop out of her head. So like, you're giving yourself these new memories. That, you know, your parents can't do that anymore for you. You're grown now. You're an adult. So I take that trigger and I just use it as a moment for me to go back and then reparent. You reparent that little you.
This sounds like such a helpful thing for the Vietnamese community specifically, because I feel like there's such a history of pain and trauma that our parents and their parents don't realize are affecting how they function in their lives now. I mean, so what's like your greatest mission or purpose with your memoir? Like, what do you hope people get out of reading it?
I hope so. I know that there's not a big how do I explain this? There's not a lot of stories about the Vietnamese in the South. No one ever knows that there's Vietnamese people in Mississippi. Like, you didn't know, girl, until you saw that ad. So I want to get the name, like our history out there, like our history out there, because I love reading books that tells me more about the historical parts of that area. So I want to, you know, put the history out there, and then also normalizing mental health. Like, you know, our parents was not able to take care of their mental health. There was no resources out there for them. They couldn't speak English. They were learning a new language, you know, learning new culture. They were in survival mode. So I want to normalize like mental health. You know, we can take care of ourselves now. Our parents did the survival part for us. Now it's up to us to do the rest. You will never get the healing you need if you just came back and confronted your parents. You'll never get that healing. You want them to say all the right words once you go back, like, you did this to me. Like, remember that one time you took like a joy in the room and you smacked me across the head, mama? Like, she's like, it's because you deserved it. You get your feelings hurt more. Like, you can never control what your parents did to you, and you can't go back to the past and take it away, and it still lives within you. Your body remembers. I read a book called The Body Keeps the Score.
Girl, it's on my shelf right now. I've been avoiding reading that book.
And your body. So when I was writing the stories with my brother, Jake, my oldest brother, like, my muscles were tensing. I kind of hunched in, like I was protecting myself. I was 4 years old when I saw that memory. So, you know, like your body remembers it, but how do we get our body to remember the new memories that we're creating?
That
The
we're not there
reparenting.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we're not that little girl who saw that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
So my purpose is to share, like, you don't have to live like this anymore. Our parents lived like this. We endured this. But when does it stop? Like, we don't have to go gambling, smoking, and drinking and have a shopping addiction.
Yeah.
Like, we literally just throw top coat on, you know,
Yeah.
a crappy polish.
Yeah.
That's my nail salon innuendo. You know, like, you can't polish a turd, so you can't polish your mental health either. Like, if you're crazy, you can be crazy for a while. When are you going to fix it?
Yeah. That's such a hard pill to swallow, though. I mean,
yeah,
I struggle with that too. I mean, like, you have to realize, shit. Like, I can sit here and be a victim of my circumstances. Like, we are,
yeah.
you know, no
It's
one's
hard
going to
not
take
to.
that away, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, my mom's not going to change. Like,
No,
I had to,
yeah.
I remember doing, when I was in therapy, she talked about this mourning process that you have of mourning the stereotypical relationship that I saw these, you know, these like white girls having with their moms, you know,
Manny's
like,
and Petty's.
yes, yes, yes.
Our parents don't go Manny and Petty's.
You
with
know,
us.
like, I wish I could come to my mom and talk to her about these problems and things, and like realizing, like, okay, I didn't have this idea or this expectation of what a stereotypical mom and dad relationship is, but I did have a mom who provided for me and took care of me and did the best that she could with what she had. And now, I mean, what am I going to do? Am I still going to be upset that I didn't get that? How do I want to move forward? And I have so much anxiety about having children because I'm like, damn, I really don't want to fuck you up. Like, I don't want to just, you know, mommy's going to have a bad day and I'm going to come home and say something and like, it's going to fuck you up. Like, you're going to be 25 years old and like, oh, remember when mom did that to me? So I have so much anxiety about raising children because I don't want to make the same mistakes or whatever. But I hear that it's not necessarily, we're going to have bad days. Like, we're going to make mistakes, but it's more so like, how are we repairing that with our children and with our spouse? And that's not something that we grew up seeing, you know, like, there was repair. Like, I'm gonna throw this shoe at your face. Like, you know,
we grew up in dysregulation.
Yes.
And we are still learning how to regulate. But how do we learn how to regulate if it was never modeled to us?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. How was your relationship like in the beginning with your husband? Like, when you didn't have those kind of models growing up, how did that come into play with
was like a little bit like what we talked about earlier. I threw things.
Yeah.
Not at him. And then even my husband, he shuts down. I mean, he shuts down and he, you know, slams the door and, you know, like, I hate to say this, but in our earlier, you know, relationship, he was like punching walls and stuff because he didn't know how to express.
Yeah.
He's angry, but how does he put his anger into words?
Yeah.
How does he say, hey, that hurt me? Or that, you know, why are you, you know, he could never articulate what he was feeling because what he saw. Yeah. His parents were, you know, kind of same thing with mine, you know, abusive and kind of were very reactive and explosive. And over time, as I went through my healing journey, of course, he's done a little bit of therapy, but not as deep as me. And he kind of just learns from the techniques I learned. But I used to throw things. And then when I had my first kid, my 1-year-old, she had done something and I was in CRNA school and I didn't like it. And it triggered me and I was upset and I flipped her table. It was a little frozen table with Elsa on it and her fucking chicken nuggets just flew everywhere. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, why did I do that? Her nuggets are everywhere now. And my daughter, you know, she's like 1 year old. She's like, what's wrong with you? Like,
chill out, mom.
She just looked at me. She was like, it's just nuggets. Like, chill out. You know, like, and I was like, I need to heal. And I was like, but I'm poor now. I'm unmedicated and I don't have any money and I'm living off a student loan. So I was like, I'm going to just have to be crazy until I graduate. So I graduated and I went to therapy for the first time in my life. And it was hard to find someone that kind of vibed with me. I had a lot of good therapists, but I needed more than a safe place to vent because venting doesn't heal me. Yeah. Like, I needed real life skills that I could take away from my session. And literally they just let me sit there and bitch pretty much the entire time. I'm like, bitching, this is what happened. I'm like crying, bitching what happened, crying. And she might be like bouncing back off of like what I'm telling her. She's like, what you're telling me is. And then she,
like, that's what I said.
Yeah. And then like none of them were Asian. Yeah. They're all white. Which is okay. I love white people, okay? But I needed someone Asian. So, and that's another thing. I feel like I don't want to go back to school to be a therapist because I don't want to do therapy. I want to do future forward. And that's what a coach is. We coach you to move forward, to take what you have now and then to give you skills and then you move forward with thriving.
Yeah.
I feel like therapists, they go back to the past and they harness on that. Like, hey, this is what happened in your trauma. Let's talk about it. And then like it hurts all over again. And you leave and you feel like you're reliving the trauma again. So I feel like none of them were Asian, especially in Mississippi. So I was like, I need more Asian representation. So that's when I start looking into not only grief coaching, but also inner child healing coach. And then that's the one that I found that was out of England. And I was like, I could do this. There's so many Asian kids who are like hurt.
Yeah.
And I was like, we need more people who look like us to talk to us. Because if you go talk to someone who is not Vietnamese or Asian or whatever, then you tell them like, in our culture,
my dad beat me.
They're like, oh, that's abuse. I'm like, no. They do it because they love us, because they ran from the Viet Cong. And they're like, what? Did your daddy run? You know, like, yeah. Did your daddy, country go to Civil War? Like, it's different. So I just feel like the representation matters.
Yeah. I mean, it's a cultural lens. Like it's part of us, so you can't look at these things separate from our mental health. Like it's all intertwined. So I love that you brought that up because it's so important. I think obviously we're growing up and we're going into the mental health field and we're advocating, but we still need more, and I think it's great that you're becoming part of those people who are coming in to help us because we need the help, girl.
And it's my jam. It's like my passion. I don't regret ever going to CRNA school and becoming a CRNA. I love my job, and it's provided me with an income where I could do what I love. So like this is my passion. Like I'll eat, breathe, and live this. Like I wake up and I'm like doing air punches. And I'm just like, I love grief coaching. I love inner child healing. Like I don't do that for anesthesia. I love my patients, and I love bringing them surgery and giving them anesthesia and making them feel comfortable before the scariest time in their life for surgery. But this is where my passion is the inner child healing, the grief coaching, the connecting with people.
Yeah.
And my daughter is just like me. She'll go into Walmart and she'll see some lady walk by with some crazy ass hair. So I'm pretty sure it was a crackhead with gold tooth. She's like, I like your hair. I like your tooth. I'm like, see, my ass is just like that when I was young. You gonna be a life coach? You gonna be a therapist one day? Why are you trying to connect with everybody, huh? Leave that crackhead alone.
But Mama, I love her one tooth. It's so pretty.
I know, it's gold, Mom. Like, that is cheese, girl. Leave it alone.
Oh man. So what's the end goal with all of this?
I don't know. Right now, I think all of my life, I always wondered what my purpose was. I think all of us kind of sometimes wonder, like, what is our purpose? Why are we here? And it happens more whenever someone like your sibling dies. Your sibling who raised you. My middle brother raised me, called him Froggy. And he raised me whenever my mom and dad was working long hours, was never home, helping my homework.
Yeah.
And when he died, I was just like, why am I here? What is my purpose? If I die tomorrow, what can I leave behind where everyone can remember me? And we talked about this in the car earlier. I'm like, this is my immortality.
Yeah.
To leave it behind a legacy for not only my children, but their children.
Yeah.
Everyone else. And then for the rest of the generations after my parents are gone, after I'm gone. I mean, how many people have you met, especially the people who have been here for generations? I'm like, hey, what's the origin of your last name? I'm like, I don't know, I'm white. Or I don't know, I'm black. Like, no, that's different. But like some of them, like they stopped talking about where they came from, their ancestors, why they came here.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want my kids or my grandkids to forget the why your grandparents escaped that country and went to a refugee camp. Why your uncle, your great great uncle got choked in kindergarten. Like I don't ever want them to ever forget any of that.
Yeah.
And that's the end game for me, is to know that that's left behind after I'm gone.
Yeah. I spoke about this in a previous episode where I growing up, my mom used to really harp on me. Like she would sit me down and tell me our whole life history and
start writing it down. Yeah.
And I remember I loved reading growing up. I told this story before, but we would go to Half Price Books, and she'd only let me go in the clearance section because she's like, we can't afford nothing else. And I would want fun books like romance and fiction. And I remember she pulled out this big ass book, like this thick, and it was over the Vietnam War.
Oh wow!
And she said, "You need to read this one. You need to learn. You need to learn more about this stuff." I'm like, "What?" So she made me read that book, and it was just always like she really wanted to instill in me, you come from this. And as a kid, I was like, "Oh, I get it, Mom. Like, I know."
Yeah.
And I think I had that feeling towards it too, because it was almost like thrown on to us, like to guilt trip us, like we did this so that you could have this. And so I grew to almost resent it a bit.
Yeah.
And as I grew older, now I'm feeling the opposite. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to hang on to this. Like, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that my mom told me those things so that I can understand where we came from. But now I'm like really wanting to soak it all in, because I was thinking like, man, when my mom passes away, like, who am I gonna call when I say, hey Mom, I want to cook some tikka, like how many dashes of whatever. And she's like, I don't know, girl, just throw it in there and taste it. Like, taste it chừng nào vừa thôi. Yes. And so I'm like, man, I really, because whenever my mom passes away, that's it. It's just me, and I'm gonna be the only one who's here. Who's gonna pass it on after me? So I think it's so important for you to write something like this so that we have a physical account of it. I mean, obviously we have these history textbooks or whatever, but no one's gonna say it and talk about these real experiences that are so universal. I mean, we're 10 years apart, but like I connect with so many of your experiences. Like, we grew up very similarly and saw a lot of these tough experiences. And so, man, like I talked to another guy, he's in like New York, and he's like 40 something, and he also grew up, he was like the first one born in America in his family. And I'm like, I connect with so many people, Vietnamese people specifically, who share these traumas. And I'm like, it's just so amazing to me that 10 plus years apart and we still are dealing with these traumas together. And I don't think there's any accounts like that out there, like written accounts of our experiences. So just to give you some encouragement, like this, you're doing the thing, girl, and you need to keep doing it.
And I post just a post. I'm in Jackson, Mississippi right now, so a lot of my friends were like predominantly white. I mean, I have black friends too, but my black friends are always rooting for me. They love me. They're like, "Yeah, girl, keep on writing." They call me country ghetto, and I'm just like, now just reaching out to like the more of the Vietnamese community, and that's why I did like the boost, the boosted post or whatever. And I'm like finding all these Vietnamese people, and they're reaching out to me. They're like, "Where are you at? Oh my gosh, you're in Mississippi!" I'm like, we have like very similar experiences.
So how's it been, like, ever since you created your account? Have you had people reach out to you?
I had a lot of people reach out, and then they're like, they feel so seen, and then it makes me feel less alone. I mean, I know I'm not alone, but sometimes having like that affirmation that you are not alone, and people from all over the world that are Vietnamese, and they're like, we've been through that too, or don't ever stop writing, because you were writing an experience that only I can feel or know, but I haven't really said anything out loud. So I think that's the beauty of writing. Even if I don't get all the grammar correct or the punctuation, like I'm still articulating something that translates into multiple souls in the Instagram world.
So where are you now with your healing journey and your grief? I mean, I know there's no destination to healing. It's always constant.
I finally feel like I have a purpose. Like I said earlier, like after my brother died, I was like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm not saying that I was suicidal, but I questioned my existence. Like, what is the point of all this? What is the point of having a job that pays 6 figures and going to school and get your doctorate degree, having a stable job at a nice pension hospital? What does all this even matter at the end of the day if you just die from COVID? And I really questioned that. And I'm at the point in my healing where I'm like, I know what my purpose is now. And my purpose is to finish this book. And I'm like, my healing point right now, I'm okay with where I'm at. Let's just be. And then anytime I feel this intuition, this gut feeling pulling me in a certain direction, I listen to it. I think before, when I was just clocking in, I heard my gut saying, clock back out and go home. I was like, shut up. Shh. I need a job. I need to be paying my bills. And I ignored it. But now I'm actually harnessing that gut and that intuition and listening. now I'm part-time.
Mm.
When I went travel CRNA in Missouri, I was able to save up a large emergency fund to where it covers me to where I can still do my inner child healing
Mm-hmm.
and my grief coaching. And then I work part-time at the CRNA school in Mississippi. And I have all this time with my family.
Yeah, that's great.
And imagine if I never listened to my gut
Yeah.
and I just kept on being miserable and clocking in at a job where I never knew when I was getting off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's a big takeaway that you'd like to tell the audience or someone who may be struggling with grief in their own healing journey?
Just go at your own pace. Definitely get whatever you can out of your system if you're drinking or if you're doing any substance, smoking or whatever. But at the end of the day, just really be sober and sit with your grief and your emotions, and then put it into a format that exists outside of your body.
Mm.
I don't think people realize we're not meant to hold all this within us. We're meant to free it and give it a life outside of us.
Mm-hmm.
My thing was writing.
Yeah.
So find out, what your thing is that frees you, letting your emotions outside of your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good, Pinky.
Thanks, my street name.
Well, before we go, where can the audience find you? Tell us where they can reach you. Are you open to sessions now? What's going on?
I am open to sessions now. They can find me on phoenixcompasshealing.com, and I have my calendar in there. And I'm also on Instagram. It's Phuong, Phuong, and it's Phoenix, like the Firebird, Phoenix, Writes with the S at the end on Instagram. And I'm pretty active on there, so if they want to reach out, I'm there, and I'll more than likely reply.
Yeah.
Because I love talking to people from everywhere.
Yeah. If you're ever in Mississippi,
Yeah, y'all ever in Mississippi, y'all want some cornbread and catfish, come on by. I know a place.
It's her house. Well, thank you so much for coming, and I'm literally so blown away that you're literally in front of me right now. I was like, this is so crazy. Like, we made these plans 2 months ago, and I just kind of put it, I was in my calendar, and then I was like, oh shit, she's coming next week. And that's when I had texted you a few days ago. I was like, man, I'm going to see her. Like, she's a real person. Yeah. So
I'm glad it's worked out, because when you reached out to me, I'm like, where you at? I'm like, girl, where you are in the United States? You said in Texas and Dallas. Like, which part? I'm like, girl, I'm going to Dallas in June. Let's meet up.
But I love it, and we're gonna be connected,
Yeah.
So
I'm glad that Facebook ad found you.
I know. It's working. It did its job. Well, thank you for coming on here, sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to see the finishing of your memoir. I'm excited to see all the cool things that you're doing for the community. It's so important. And those of you who are listening, you heard right here how badass this woman is. She's a hoot. She's great. And come and connect with her. Don't come correct though, because she will come and chase you down barefoot down the road if you don't come correct. So well, thank you again, Emma, Phuong, Pinky.
I'm trans number.
She go by 3 names. Okay, gotta say all of them. Yeah. Thanks, girl. Thanks for
having me.
Yeah. And as always, thank you everyone for listening. I will leave all her connections in the show notes for y'all. Please go show her some love. And as always, thanks for listening. I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.